Liz, thank you ever so much for your time and agreeing to do it. I really appreciate it.
That's okay. Good to meet you.
Yeah,
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, pleasure. I was just on. Yeah, I think it was kind of like it was a hashtag or a social media thing that I follow, and it was just like local food economy or local, just local economy, food network or something. And then I just saw this video of these humongous tractors in central London. And I thought I've got to delve into that and see kind of where it goes and what's happening. And then it kind of led me to your page of like Save British Farming. So yeah, what's the campaign about? What was the innovation behind the tractors going down? And yeah.
Well, it actually started. We did a campaign last year called Farmers for a People's Vote, actually, where we took we got 6 stunt sheep and took them to London, to Whitehall. And we launched a report from Sean Rickard, who is the ex-chief economist of the NFU, which was all based around what would happen to farming in no-deal Brexit, which is, in a nutshell, that at least half of our British farmers would go bust because no-deal Brexit ensures that we lose our export market. We also lose and are starting to lose subsidies from next year. That is happening for food production. And then coupled with that, going on to WTO means that everybody around the world can import here to Britain. And production costs and welfare costs and standards are much lower in other countries, so they can produce their food a lot cheaper than us. And they probably have more space, countries like America and New Zealand. So British farming would not be able to survive, or a lot of British farms would not be able to survive that in the long run. So you would see farms go out of business on a huge scale. New Zealand went through a similar kind of thing a few years ago. And it is used by some of the people that support Brexit to say, well, it was good for New Zealand, it had a good clear out and, it was good for their farms. But first of all, a lot of New Zealand farmers committed suicide because of the decimation of their industry.
Oh, really?
But also, when they got rid of subsidies and had a clean out as such, China was emerging as a market. So it's not the same as Brexit. We've got these three things happening at the same time, which are pretty much unsurvivable for most farms, particularly the sort of mid-sized to smaller farms. So we launched that last year, and we always intended to do more things. And in fact, with Led by Donkeys, we did a field sign here, which went viral everywhere, because all of the polling was showing that Britain actually wanted to remain. It was, well over 50% for remain. And then, of course, the election was called, and then that was that. So we always intended to do more, and I always intended to do another stunt as such. So it was always in the back of my mind to try and get tractors up to London. And a few people kept asking me what's happening. So we decided to do it, and we decided to do it at quite short notice. And initially we were going to do it on a weekend, and then all the Black Lives Matter stuff happened.
Yeah.
So we actually postponed the first one, and we thought, well, let's do it on a Wednesday when everybody's in Parliament. And so that's what we did. And in lots of ways, it was good because we know that we got Parliament's attention. They saw us. But in other ways, it probably might have had more cut through on the media had we done it on a weekend. Because we had the day we chose happened to be the mini budget, and also the court case with Johnny Depp kind of dominated the media airwaves.
Important news there, isn't it?
Yeah. But I was very heartened to see that last week some coaches did the same thing. They drove around Parliament, and because it doesn't have to be a people demonstration, does it? And that's what we thought with the pandemic. It was, a safe thing to do. It doesn't have to be disruptive. It doesn't have to be aggressive. It's just kind of getting attention and saying we're here. And it was fascinating driving through and seeing all the people watching us as we went through. And so, yeah, it was a really positive thing to do. And then on top of that, I was contacted by some vegan and animal welfare activists who are normally seen as farmers' adversaries, particularly us, where, because we have animals here. And I'm really excited by the fact that they are now backing British farming, because, to suddenly be offshoring our food production to countries where they have terrible animal welfare standards, none of us want to see that. So it's good to see that it's possible for people with opposing views to be able to find common ground and to unite and celebrate what is ultimately British.
Yeah, right, exactly. What are the potential dangers when we look at outsourcing our food to other countries like America, or I don't know, whichever countries are lined up?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to go back in history and see when they repealed the Corn Laws. And this is a controversial subject because I am a Liberal, and a lot of Liberals celebrate the repeal of the Corn Laws because it ended the feudal system. And then it meant that...
when was this, the Corn Law?
1846. Testing my history now. I think it was somewhere around then, 18-something. That ensured that food imports could come in, and they were cheaper than British food, and a lot of farms went out of business. But in those days, it was not so easy to import meat or milk. So we still managed that those parts of the farms held on. But it meant that a lot of people had to go and find work, and that happened through industrialisation, which caused a revolution. And that's how we ended up with the Midlands becoming industrialised, South Wales, and so forth. But fast forward, to 2 world wars, and then, with the loss of the empire, we had severe food shortages. Everybody was rationed. And then it came, there was a campaign by the government, Dig for Britain, and everybody had to start making food in their own back gardens because the imports were being... we couldn't get the food in because Europe was at war. But we did have the Commonwealth, and some of the food did come in to the west of the country, into Swansea and through there and into Cardiff. So if we now apply this modern day Corn Law repeal, which is what Brexit is in essence, then we are leaving open or getting rid of what is seen as a public good, which is food security. There's always been a public good since the war, and that is being eradicated. So in effect, food is being privatised, food production, really.
Oh, really?
In the same way as happened with the coal industry in the 1980s. We subsidised our coal extraction. We had miners, and there was a huge industry, and it was decided that we should import coal and close our mines. Now, when you look at that, you look back at that, and I come from South Wales, and I know a lot that went on with coal mines, and how bad it was for people's health. It was devastating. The change was devastating. However, we're not sad or regretful about getting rid of mining and people dying in the mines and having health issues associated with that. And we are becoming greener, and energy is becoming greener. So there is, in some ways, that revolution perhaps now was a good thing, although it was shocking. But I think it's a massive mistake to get rid of our food security, because what will happen to the landscape, what will happen, particularly, and as I said, when the Corn Laws were repealed, livestock was still safe. Whereas with this, now, meat can come from South America, from the rainforest. So there'll be more rainforest cleared, and that meat will come over here. It's pumped full of hormones and antibiotics. It's intensively farmed. as you can see here now on this farm, our animals have a great life. They've got plenty of space to roam around and eat grass, and they have good life. They are not reared like that over there. We don't use any hormones, and they only get given antibiotics if they're sick. So that's a huge change. And once these herds go from Britain, first of all, where our cattle graze, you can't just grow something else on this land. It's only really good enough to graze. So it'll turn to scrubland, and that's exactly what happened in, particularly after the 1930s agricultural depression, that large amounts of land ended up turning into scrub. And so to get it back to farming standard is a huge, takes huge investment. So I think it's a massive mistake to let this go. So it's not, I think a lot of people have said, sometimes on social media say to me, you're doing this because of self-interest. Well, it's not really. We've diversified a lot on this farm. We've got solar energy. We grow a lot of crops for energy. So actually, we are going to be okay. My husband is nearing retirement. So it's not for us per se. It is, my main concern is for the country.
Yeah, for the kind of general welfare and literally feeding of the nation. I mean, it's something like that. Something you said before, which kind of struck me a little bit, was this idea of food is becoming privatized. That's quite a just quite a shocking statement when you kind of put it in those terms, and you kind of realize and see what's happening. It's like, actually, yeah, maybe you're right, maybe it is. And it's quite a, I don't know, it's quite a, when you think of the governments of past years trying to literally just turn everything into private investment and private companies.
Yeah, but they call it market-led.
Right.
So they believe that the market should lead everything with as little regulation as possible. But we know what that ensures. We've seen it with the privatisation of our utility companies, the railway companies, all of these things. It doesn't always have a great outcome for the individuals. But I think on food, it is quite. I actually attended a DEFRA consultation last week, and they did.
Who are DEFRA? What's the DEFRA?
The Department of, God, you've got me now.
Economic, food, something, agriculture.
Yeah, you might need to cut that out.
We'll do that.
They basically admitted, or they conceded, that food was no longer a public good.
Wow.
So they're now saying what public good is, what they're going to do is pay farmers to do environmental projects. So at the moment, you have incentives, financial incentives, but you get paid for cultivated land. And that system has worked. It's been tweaked and it's worked. It's not perfect, but it's worked pretty well. But now it's completely and utterly being, upended and changed around, which I think is a huge mistake.
Yeah. What's kind of the next stage in terms of, you're obviously trying to kind of raise awareness around it. What's the next stage in terms of trying to kind of combat this movement, this outsourcing of our food supply source? So
the whole rationale for doing this is the agriculture bill it did have an amendment put on it called the Parish Amendment, which was voted down in Parliament, and it's actually currently in the House of Lords as we speak, and it will be coming back to the Commons in September, and it will have an amendment on it, which will, and I've heard, hopefully, it's going to be a Parish plus amendment, which will hopefully legislate to stop lower quality imports being allowed. And that is, for us, that would be a win, because we're not saying no to going global if we have to go global and have imports. But what we're saying is it should be fair. whoever imports food to this country should have to come up to our standards. And really, that's what Brexit was all about. I thought taking back control, not losing control. So we really want to create some public awareness around that. We want people to communicate with their MPs to say, actually, I'm not happy about being force-fed food, which is not good enough for British people. And so that, to help raise that awareness, we're rolling out a poster campaign, and that is starting to happen beginning of next week. So you'll start to see posters on farms and hopefully in people's gardens to say save British food, save British farming. And then we have got a website, and on that website there'll be templates for letters and emails to send to MPs. But as we manage to get the government to change their mind on the free school meals with Marcus Rashford, we really want the same kind of pressure to build, that people really need to understand why this so matters. And some people say to me, it's okay, I know I can avoid it because I'll just look at the label and I'll buy the packet that's got the red tractor on it. Well, that will all go. We won't be allowed to have food origin labelling. Under WTO, you can't. So you won't know what you're buying. Equally, when you go to a restaurant or a cafe, you don't know what's in that food.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, especially this kind of COVID period too. Especially when this kind of COVID thing first came in. You know, I already kind of knew that the food system was quite fragile, just because I did a bit of. Okay, so this carrot came from such and such. Okay, but if that doesn't, and then, you know, so you already kind of saw it was on a bit of a fragile, foundation. But when it all really kicked in, and you know there was talk of like borders closing and you know, all this kind of stuff, like then the kind of lightning bolt in my head was just even magnified even more as to like we are literally on a kind of time bomb, and as you said before, one or two harvest failures or crop failures.
Well, that's right. Yeah, if we're relying on on other parts of the world to feed us, instead of being in an intricate food sharing system as we are with the European Union, then if there's a climate event in America, in a couple of their states, and perhaps in Ukraine, and their harvests fail, why are they going to feed us? They're not going to sort of say, oh, well, half for you, Great Britain, and we'll take the other half. They're not. They're going to be looking after their own people first. And, you know, it's hard to imagine being hungry because we've not really been hungry in this country within our generations. But in the world, there is starvation. In Zimbabwe, you know, and that was the breadbasket of Africa. Because of ideology and changes, they are now having food shortages and people are starving. So it's, to me, I absolutely can see how dangerous. I mean, it makes me feel very uncomfortable, the thought of of people not having food. I just can't bear the thought of it.
Yeah.
So and what that would, you know, give rise to. And where do we go? You know, where do we go to get food? So I mean, we're okay on the farm here. We you know, we'll always get some food, but for people in cities, yeah, it's an unimaginable thought, the panic that would rise from that, as we saw with the COVID, as it started to be seen.
Yeah.
So I think it's incredibly arrogant and blasé to just think, oh, we did it with coal, it was great, so let's just do it to our food and our healthcare system, because, you know, that certainly form part of the next process through.
Yeah.
To unburden the taxpayer of responsibilities and deregulate everything, so we're all just sovereign individuals and we only care about ourselves. I mean, I think that goes against everything that we learnt from the last World War, which was to do with working together and working as a community to overcome issues. So I hope that we're successful. Some people say it's too late. I don't think it's. I don't believe it's too late until it's actually happened. I'm going to fight on and do what I can. But it is a complex issue, and people just haven't got the time, or that there's so much going on all of the time that people haven't got the time to really focus in on it. And even before the vote, I kept saying to people, forget everything else about all of the immigration or any of the issues you don't like about Europe. This is about your food.
Right.
Your food really matters.
Well, it's the kind of basis of everything, isn't it? The basis of you functioning, of community, of family, of it's you need it to survive. It's kind of this that should be at the forefront of everyone's minds. I think personally
It should be, but it's testament to the fact that it's been so successful. Our food system is that people are so complacent about it.
Yeah, and then you said something before we recorded about tethering the ties to your kind of nearest neighbours. I mean, it just beggars kind of common sense belief, doesn't it? Really, as to why you would do that.
Well, yes, it does beg a belief. And when you think about something like a country like California suddenly deciding they're gonna leave America and then start importing food from halfway across the world. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, right.
So it doesn't make any sense at all. So I think, I think it's gone on for so long, and people are so tired, and it's kind of like, well, we voted for it, so we just have to have it. Well, we do have to have it now. It is here, but it doesn't have to be exactly as Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings have decided we should have it. They have they've basically silenced Parliament. And I really think that it's about time that we did get up and take control ourselves and say, hang on a second, this isn't what we want.
Yeah. You mentioned before, you said before about the kind of war mentality of you're in it together, of sharing, of like rationing, of doing that kind of thing. Where, how, and why do you think that has changed and shifted over the course of, say, 80 years? How have we got into this mindset of being so me, my, I, individualistic? Where have we lost that sense of community, do you think?
Well, I think a lot of it started with the deindustrialisation period with Thatcher. I certainly identify it then. I had to leave South Wales to find work. There wasn't really anything, a lot of my friends got work in Germany. They all lost because a lot of them worked in the steelworks. All of that closed down. So I think that caused, I think that started the beginning of the breakdown of communities, and people then having to move for work. And then it's just exacerbated from there, I guess. And I think people are angry about that. And I think they've blamed immigration for that feeling of loss, of not having that, and seeing perhaps towns, even around here, some of the towns here have changed a lot because they've tacked on a lot of housing to start, and there's a lot of resentment around them, feeling as if things are crowded because the doctor's surgery is full or the school is full. But those issues are not about immigration per se. They are about people moving around for work. And I suppose with the invention of the cars, everybody has a car now, everybody's more mobile. So I think that's made people be able to think, right, okay, I was born here, I grew up here, but I'm going to go and live 200 miles down the road for my job. And things have changed and moved. And I think there is a kind of yearning by some to go back to always knowing everybody and being familiar with everything around them.
Yeah, when I lived in London I'm kind of am now, but I grew up in London, and then my ex-partner was from Somerset, and so we kind of migrated down to Frome, or I did anyway. And the kind of shift in like community and in just your everyday kind of meetings with people, it was something that being in London and being in a city, you kind of value your own individualness, you value your pride because there's so many people there. You just value that kind of mindset. Whereas coming out here and and like experiencing the kind of value of community and the value of like communication and talking and you know, sharing. It was a massive shift that happened in my head.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you are right. People do strive for it and people do want it, but in a kind of major city environment, it's hard to come by, I think.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing that's eroded it has been the supermarkets, because it used to be pre-supermarkets, which you won't remember, but I do. You know, it was the local butcher, the local delicatessen, your local shop where you get all your, you know, your cupboard stuff, and your milkman would come and deliver your milk, your bakery. Everything was available, and it meant talking to somebody and knowing that same person, and all of that really has been eroded by supermarkets.
Yeah,
because you just go in one shop and you're out, and it's cheaper.
Yeah, maybe that's a kind of way that if people did want to kind of, you know, hark back to that world, you know, they could literally think, oh, I want a loaf of bread today. Maybe go to the baker's instead of go to the supermarket, or you know, you want some fishmongers.
But it brings you back to the problem around rates, business rates, and profitability, and you know, it's where we are now. The internet came through, all of the high streets have been eroded by the fact that you can go and look at a computer in a shop and it costs £200 cheaper if you buy it online, and that translates through into running a small shop selling fruit and veg. There's just no profit in there. So I think you know, there's been an issue with such high business rates for shops, and then that has then fed into this more watering away of it all going into a few hands, into the corporations. But that's really what, even though people voted against that, the bizarre thing is Brexit is going to lead to more power to the corporations.
Yeah, very much so. Do you think is it a done deal? Do you think it is? Do you think it is happening that way, and that's the way it's going to?
Unless the people find their voices and find a way to resist, it will happen. Yes, as it happened with, and I remember the determination of Margaret Thatcher to smash the unions and, you know, to get rid of that industry. I think it's just as strong in the Conservative Party to achieve that. Yeah, they see it's a way of breaking through the liberal system and breaking the welfare state, which we've all grown up with, you know. And yes, we then go into a kind of American model, I guess, which is horrendous to me. I mean, it's repellent. I am very much a massive supporter of the system. It's been hugely successful here. So I think it's a massive mistake. But if you're rich, if you're super rich, and you never use the NHS, and you only ever buy premium goods, premium food at the top level, and you perhaps own houses in other parts of the world, then I suppose you are going to resent paying tax for someone else to have their cancer treatment, or for someone else to if they all their kids go to private school as well, then they're I like my house in Britain, but I don't like having to pay all that tax. So why should I have to pay all of this? So I think you should get rid of it. So it is a very selfish kind of phenomenon.
And it does. It's such a shame, because if you look at the general population of Britain, it does benefit just a tiny minority of, you know, the sort of population that kind of idea of sort of lower taxation and business rates and all that sort of stuff. It's a very
But the people that are going to suffer the most and are the people that voted for it and are still supporting it, because they think. Well, I don't know what they think, but they think it's going to be better because it's all about Britain, but it isn't. It's mostly, I mean, we're seeing it with farming now. There's a big American corporation called Cargill. They've set up a company here called Frontier, which is taking business from open fields, which is a cooperative. So Warburton's Bread has already given their contract to Frontier now and got rid of their contract with Open Fields. So it's coming in, creeping in. And again, within our healthcare system, the same thing is happening. We've got American firms taking over our healthcare. So I think we're partway there. A lot has been done, but it is undoable at this stage. So if anyone's listening and you're feeling apathetic, then I would urge you to think again and get up there, write, ring your MP, make an appointment, ask difficult questions. But also when you're out in your community, talk to people and get other people, because really, they say it only takes 1% of the population to start resisting hard, and it'll bring change. So, we don't need, and when you look at what's gone on in Hong Kong and how much it has, suddenly they were kettled into that position, and now, it's too late for them to do. They're now, that's it, it's over, it's curtains. And you think, how can that happen? Could it happen to us? Well, yes, it could, unless we actually find some strength to resist it.
And you've also kind of seen with the kind of protests and the movements with Black Lives Matter, that like when something does matter, when something is at the forefront of people's minds, things can really take hold and take change, and they can really, become front page news, and it can be at the forefront of people's conversations. And I think there's something also that needs to happen with regards to people's food and people's the way they eat. It needs to be a kind of...
Yeah, well, I just remember being on social media before the vote and everyone saying, oh, well, they was blaming the EU for closing the steelworks. Well, it wasn't. It was Margaret Thatcher. But all of these things, the EU did this and they did that. I kept saying to them, look, you only need, in life, you only need three things: food, shelter and water. That's it. We don't need anything more than that. And all of those things are threatened with this. I think now it's all been so badly done in the interference in the referendum, the overspending, the way that it's just bounced from one thing to the next. It's left people feeling exhausted and confused, but now really we are absolutely at the cliff edge. We are there, and we need to do what we can to change that.
Very much so. So for people listening to this, if they can take something away from this, what is the kind of main crux, and that they can take away, that they can talk about, and that they can actually do? What can people
people need to write to their MP, and they need to harass their MP, not just one letter to their MP. Start writing to him regularly, emailing him. Email him every day. It's easy enough to do.
Camp on their front lawn.
Write into local newspapers.
Right.
And they're desperate for material in local newspapers, so they're always they generally do print residents' letters. And we will be doing another campaign in the autumn. In September, I haven't got the date yet, which will be a coordinated regional protest. And we would like people to join in with that. We're going to call it a Harvest Festival campaign. Nice. And because for tractors to get to London, it's very difficult.
I did think that on the way here. I was thinking, my God, that's a long way for them to go.
Yeah, I mean that's why we limited it to a small number. So they were sort of fairly local to London from Kent and so forth. Good. So what we want to do is have a regional campaign, probably 6 to 8 locations across the country. So it's easier for people to join in, and for it all to happen on the same day at the same time. A drive through is sort of similar thing, driving through the town and then culminating in an area for a rally, or that kind of thing, for some people to do some talking. But that's the next thing, the next stage that we're planning at the moment after the posters.
Okay.
So we will be doing more, and now that we are on, I think what we face is either no deal or a terrible deal. That's it. That's the reality. So we're going to be going back and looking at Sean's report and talking about no deal a lot, because that is the biggest risk for us farmers is the no deal.
Right. Well, okay. Well, in your endeavours, in your time, in your efforts, in everything, I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully this will go, some way to spreading the word and helping you in our, quest to secure our food security and save British farming. I think.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
I think the sun's on my side today. I got a lease of life, I feel okay. Need to call around, get them all out, jump in the car and get on our way. Cause there's love and there's strength in numbers. They can try but they're never gonna run us down, down. Speakers loud, it's like we're on a come up. Fifth gear but they're never gonna race us down, down. I'm alive on a high, blue skies, there's nothing better. Hands up, we're on a ride, hold tight, we're laughing together. Ooh, we'll light it up and ooh, we can't be stopped and oh, can't hear us coming. Oh, we take off and keep it running. Keep it running. Oh. Take a stop at the riverside, crack 'em open, pass around the light. Breathe it in and out, bring our guards down. Yeah, this is ours for the day and the night. Cause there's love and there's strength in numbers. They can try but they're never gonna run us down, down. Speakers loud, it's like we're on a come up. Fifth gear but they're never gonna race us down, down. I'm alive on a high, blue skies, there's nothing better. Hands up, we're on a ride, hold tight, we're laughing together. Ooh, we'll light it up and ooh, we can't be stopped and oh, you can't hear us coming. Oh, we take off and keep it running, running. We take off and keep it running. Oh, we light it up and oh, we can't be stopped and oh, you can't hear us coming.